when really at the end of the day, it's just the matter of a macro market. It's just what happens.
That's why it's really important to have a plan and understand what your goals are.
In fact, my camel out there is suffering right now with a broken back.
So I actually found Pepe when it was only a couple of hours old, and I'm like, oh, this is a funny meme.
Oh my god.
Yo! Who is this DJ?
The old man is swing trading over years at a time. And it's like, that's where the real money is made.
The answer is impermanent loss. With single-sided staking, you don't have to worry about impermanent loss.
If you're aware, if you're disciplined, you can hone that into further financial growth.
Financial freedom, so where you can actually live life and not have to be constantly living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, more or less, right? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, crypto degenerates, ducks and squirrels, welcome to this 23rd episode of Book Club, where we're going to be covering Richard Hart's Sci-Vive chapter 6, which is Respect and Influence. We're going to be talking about a whole bunch of collective quotes. I just kind of went through and I just highlighted all the things that I like. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. If you guys have any sort of suggestions, or if there's a particular part of the chapter that you liked as an audience member, then roll on over to the DGen Roundtable Book Club Telegram, which is t.me / what is it? Oh man, I can't remember it off the top of my head. I want to say it's like, DGen Book Club, t.me / DGen Book Club. Go on over there, hop into the book 23, Sci-Vive chapter 6, and if you see any little quotes in there, then give it a star, give it a like, give it a little reaction, and we'll talk about it on stream. Joining me today, I've got my fantastic co-host, Mr. Zenith, and I've got our two panelists, Mr. Sam, my brother, and Mr. Nate McGettit. Gentlemen, welcome to Book Club number 23. And also, all of you guys catching us live, welcome to you guys as well. For those folks at home who don't know who you are, Zenith, can you give yourself a quick little introduction and tell the folks what you thought about this particular chapter of Sci-Vive?
Well, hello, all you beautiful people out there. I am Zenith. I am the other co-host of Book Club, where Will and I switch off every week. And then other than that, jack of all trades and legal and government analyst. That is what I do around these parts. As far as this chapter, well, for anyone that is familiar with the Sci-Vive Book Club segments, they're not going to be surprised when I say that this chapter almost broke me. I read the SJ version, and I'm very, very curious to hear from the people that read the other versions, because this was 5.5 hours, and boy, do I have thoughts. So I'll leave it at that and pass it over to Sam.
Hey everybody, my name is Sam. I'm the guy from Bungalows for Bachelors. I'm your residential construction expert. If you want to know how to build or modify your house or have any questions about that kind of stuff, aside from pest control, that's this guy. You ask him about that. But that's what I'm about. So if you want to learn about that, check out my Telegram, t.me / BFB Success. But otherwise, I thought this was a smashing book. And specifically this chapter that we were reading, right? This is a smashing chapter. Man, it's like, I don't know if this is what Zenith is referring to here, but boy, howdy, is there chock-a-block full of just quote after quote after quote after quote of just like I found myself going through this chapter and I'm like, oh man, that was good. I got to write that down. And then he says the next thing and it's like, oh crap, no, I got to write that down. And it's just like, I got to just one sentence at a time, my guys. And so eventually I just decided to absorb it in its beauty. And yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into it today. So Mr. Nate McGettit, Mr. Sir, what's up with you?
Well, just hanging out, doing the normal thing. It is Friday, which is nice, and Friday book club is fun. But yeah, actually, I kind of had the opposite effect there, Sam. I started kind of zoning out a little bit because I was like, so this is one of those things that I take, and I'm like, if I'm ever having trouble or trying to figure something out in my life, I go and I look in this chapter, and I'm like, okay, so I want to be happy. Let me go look that up real quick. And then there's going to be some sort of quote or some sort of a way that I could only describe Richard Hart, his way of thinking in how to be happy. So I was like, in my brain with all the other things that I was going on today, I was like, okay, so I'm just gonna basically put this into the category of if I ever need a list of something that I need in life, bam, there it is right there. And I shall always refer back to it.
Outstanding. Well, I'm glad to hear that you guys, and from what I understand, my internet has a little bit of a delay. So if I start talking over you guys, I apologize. To me, it sounds like I'm talking at pretty reasonable points in the conversation, but we'll see how it goes. I'm up on a mountaintop right now, so we're going to work through it. But excellent. So before we get into the actual meat and potatoes of the book, we're going to do a quick little round of everyone's favorite part of the DGen Roundtable, and that's chat shoutouts. Hooray! So, Mrs. Producer, if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to go ahead and wait a little bit. Oh, looks like you're already on the ball. Sweet. So the delay is, you can at least anticipate the delay. So first off, in the chats, we've got Agent J, and he is letting us know that he has arrived. It's good. We're good. It's good to have you, bro, and we're glad to see you. Excellent. So that's the DGen Roundtable's very own Agent J. Up next, we have Kenturian54X. What is up, DGens? What's up to you, Mr. Kenturian? We're glad to have you as well. Always glad to see you. Man, this guy, I'm pretty sure Centurion's been with us since the beginning, and he had just like barely learned and found out about crypto. So it's like we've all been going on this fantastic journey together. All right, up next, we got Mr. or M Rock Jockey, or Mr. Ock Jockey. I'm not really sure. Finger red number 1. I don't know how that appears for you guys, but for me, it's just like
the emoji in the chat is a big foam finger with number 1 written on it. So that is what that is.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. I'm like, why does it finger red number 1 ? All right, cool beans. Number 1. That means we're number 1, ladies and germs. All right, up next, we've got Mr. Moonmutt. Love it. Good to see you all, Mr. Moonmutt. We are glad to see you as well, my friend. Welcome, welcome. Good to have you. Next up, we got Jenna Nelson. I need some of Will's energy. LOL. You're absolutely right. And what I do is I go to Colombia, where they serve up 2 different types of energy. They've got the one kind of leaf, and then they've got the other kind of leaf. So we'll leave that up to the imagination. But it seems to me that Colombia's entire purpose of existence is to wake the rest of the world up. So y'all need to go to Colombia and get you some fantastic energy. And also you can just breathe a lot, and that'll make you really excited. That's probably a safer way. Moving right along, we've got Tam Tam. What's up, fam? What's going on with you, Tam Tam? Good to see everyone cheerleader in the space. Always great to have you. And there's some random dude from freaking Facebook Messenger calling me right now. He wanted to sell me some shit earlier. But you guys don't need to know about that because we're here to talk about SciVive. So let's go ahead and talk about SciVive. Now, my laptop's internet has shit the bed, but fortunately for us, Telegram does not need the internet to keep all the stuff up and running. So I've got with me a collection of quotes, and I'm just going to kind of read off the quotes that we're going to talk about today. Instead of going through an entire synopsis of what the chapter is about, I'll give you guys the basic dirty details for the folks at home who have not read chapter 6, which is about influence and respect, or respect and influence, depending on where you fall on the scale. It basically just talks about this is how you deal with other people. From the respect perspective, it's when you're in a position that's I don't want to say subservient, but something along the lines of you're kind of following someone else's lead, like you're working for a boss, or you're listening to your parents when you're at their house for Thanksgiving, or something along that lines. Like this is how to this chapter talks about how best to respect people that are in positions of authority over top of you, or have earned their way higher up in the echelon of life, or higher up on the food chain pyramid, whatever. And then influence is how describes how you can best change the world around, though, for those who are following your footsteps. So it's basically the 2 different sides of the spectrum: how to act when you're on the top of the pyramid, and how to act when you're on the bottom of the pyramid to best change the world around you to be a better place. So that's basically the synopsis of the chapter, and he talks about it for probably about 3 or 4 hours, 5 if you listen to the SJ version. I like the Ann Hex version, and that one took me about 4 hours. I was able to listen to it about once and a half between today and yesterday. But yeah, it's a fantastic chapter. This one's actually one of my best, and he has a couple of my most favorite quotes in here. But we're going to go ahead and cover some of the quotes that have been picked out by the folks on the panel. So one of the things that we're going to talk about is overcomplicating things to look smart is the opposite of being smart. That's a good one. That's quite fun. And all of these that I wrote down are my favorite. So literally the whole SciVive book is my favorite, but this is some great. All right, next up, makeup, fashion, and social media are all like WWE wrestling. It's fun to watch, and it's not real. Up next, the uglier you are, the more your mistakes will cost you. After that, we got if you want to lose friends, Give them money for free. People want to earn their keep, and if you rob them of that opportunity, you also rob them of their respect for you. And then last but not least, or excuse me, we got two more. The best part of any outfit is the person wearing it. And then finally, sometimes it's better to construct controlled, non-harmful drama. Otherwise, you'll just invite your woman to bring in or construct made-up drama into the relationship. So, ladies and gentlemen on the panel, those are the fun little quotes that we got going on here. And so I'm just going to kind of randomly scroll through and I'm going to pick one or two of them. But before I do that, I want to give you guys an opportunity. If something really stuck out to you in this chapter, and you don't have to answer if you don't want to, we could just pass it on to the next person. But if something really stuck out to you in this chapter that I haven't read through, of these little quote things, now would be the time for you guys to speak now or forever hold your peace, and I'll run the show. It looks like Zenith has something. Sam, I can see you pulling your head up to your headset, so I'm going to presume you have something as well. And then Mr. Nate McGettit, I remember you talking about this chapter puts you to sleep. So I'll give you an opportunity if you like, but we're going to start off with Zenith. So Zenith, why don't you go ahead and speak a little bit about Sci-Fi Broski?
I'm surprised you missed this one in your notable quotes. But there is a point in the chapter where Richard Hart specifically says that he wants Sci-Fi to be the best self-help book that there is, even better than Rich Dad Poor Dad, The Richest Man in Babylon, and the 40-minute work week.
And he's got a couple more. How to Win Friends and Influence People. He mentioned that one. He mentioned a bunch of them. Now, see, that's an interesting interpretation, Zenith. And I shouldn't be cutting you off, but I'm gonna fit this thought in since I've lagged out internet anyways. But my interpretation of that particular part of this chapter was, I thought that he was saying these are the books that I tried to take the good things out of in order to make my book. That's what I thought he was saying. I'm curious to hear your take on it though, because it sounds like he's saying I want to be better than these guys. Which is totally, that also sounds like Richard Hart.
Unless I'm mistaken, I'm pretty sure he said he literally wants to make sure that Sci-Fi is a better book than those books. So I mean, my question to the panel is, out of Sci-Fi, The Richest Man in Babylon, Rich Dad Poor Dad, How to Win Friends and Influence People, or The 40-Minute Work Week, which one of these is the best self-help book?
Okay, so I would argue in terms of self-help as a category, this one's a strong contender for sure. Like as a broad category, like there's a lot of like life stuff you can change from this book. A lot of the other books are like, okay, how can I be more efficient and make more money? Like there's a lot of other parts of life that are important. And How to Win Friends and Influence People is obviously important for like relationship building, but like I don't know if it's the best. But it's certainly like entertaining and like there's a lot of good nuggets in it that like make you think at the very least.
Well, I'll agree with Sam on this one actually, because here's what I was kind of seeing off of this chapter alone, right? I'm like, okay, I can put this on a shelf and I can be like, all I want to do is I want to try and go pick up chicks, right? Okay, let me learn that. How do I do that? Oh, something, you know what? It's always in here. Go to this chapter. Okay, he's got like an entire section on that, step by step, how to do that. Cool. Or I could just go to a different book that specifies on that. Sure. But what I was kind of noticing with these what do you call it, like just listings of things in this chapter was it seemed like it was, if somebody somewhere out there in the world wants to better their life by whatever means that they personally have or personally want to, then they can find it here in this chapter, somewhere in this chapter. It's so broad, like everything. He was speaking to such a broad audience in this chapter that yeah, like you said, Will, I started kind of zoning out a little bit.
So I to answer your question, Zenith, I would agree with Sam, and I would say that Sci-Vive is the best shotgun approach. If you want sniper solutions, or if you want well focused and honed like problem solving things, then yeah, Rich Dad Poor Dad, Richest Man in Babylon, How to Win Friends and Influence People, 40-Hour Work Week. Those are your go-to books. But if you're looking to become a better like 80% solution to a lot of things in life, I think that Sci-Vive is a good a good colossal collection of quotable quotes. Basically, like it's not a whole lot of profound stuff. It's a whole bunch of obvious things that are all just kind of packaged nice and neatly together. And I would say that Sci-Vive personally, like my interpretation is it falls more into the PME category than high quality education category. You know, it's all preventative maintenance education. It's not anything like profound or I mean, you know, let me take that back. It might be profound if you haven't gone out and experienced a whole lot in life, but for the folks at home who are like, you know, just like starting their journey of self-discovery and trying to figure things out, I would say that this is a good book that goes into the category of between 0 and 1,000 hours. You know, this isn't a 2,000 hours of expertise book. This is like a beginner level. This is like beginner level stuff and things of that nature. That's my personal take on Sci-Vive. And so I would give it the better self-help book in that regard. But if you're looking to fix specific problems, Sci-Vive is probably not the way to go.
So I'll hit you with a Socrates real quick, which is that what is knowledge but information married with experience? What I think that this book does is it provides half of each of them, so you end up with neither.
Are you saying it's the broadest possible there, Zenith?
Oh my God.
It is the broadest, the shallowest, and the most diverse and random. I think that... Go for it, please.
I was just gonna say I want to thank you for joining us on this quest, because I know that this is gonna take at least 7 episodes, and we're on episode number 7 right now. So like Zenith, like I applaud your patience. This is 14 hours of your life that you're not getting back, and you've been a very good sport about it. So thanks, bro. I know that Sci-Vive is
I'm in it to win
he's
it at
reading
this
the
point.
book too.
Yep.
Yeah,
What
I'm
was
trying
that,
to be
Sam?
nice over here. Come on, Zenith.
I was saying that's not counting the time he's reading the book in addition to being on this podcast.
That's true.
That is true. That is a very good point. I did count it out. By the way, the SJ version on YouTube, not including the little extra one, which is 15 Ways to Fix the World by Richard Hart, but the actual numbered chapters is 22 hours.
Jinkies.
That is giving Ray Dalio's Changing World Order a run for its money. And I think it still beats it for runtime. So the reason that I'm not this is going to be a recurring theme, which is that I think Richard Hart is very good at specific things. I don't think that being an author is necessarily one of them. And unfortunately, I think he even sets himself up for failure a little bit in this chapter in particular, because he lays out standards by which he judges information and the people who spread information, and then fails to meet those standards himself. So specifically, one of the things we were talking about earlier was if the more words you have to say, the dumber you sound. This is a 5.5 hour chapter on respect, which even in the very beginning of the chapter, if I recall correctly, he admits like, oh yeah, it's titled Respect, but there's just a lot of stuff in here.
Yeah,
I ran into that too. That wasn't just me then.
Yes. That's what I'm telling you, people. Like, look, is the information good in here? Yes, it is. However, I also think that when you look at the information, the reason that it makes sense to us is because I think the people that are in the space that we are in and doing the activities that we are doing, we largely have been exposed to a lot of these ideas before. And there's a specific reason that he references like Robert Kiyosaki and Dale Carnegie and all those other guys. And it's because he is also familiar with the concepts. Therefore, it's not starting from zero. It's, again, kind of standing on the shoulders of giants. So it's really just like kind of taking some of those ideas and maybe sprinkling like a little example or two on top of it. But at the end of the day, it still just largely feels like a lot of random stuff. Like if I had the synopsis that you gave for this chapter sounded a lot better than what I had in my head, because I did the exercise beforehand of what I did on previous episodes, which is poorly describe the synopsis of this chapter for me in a somewhat comedic way. And the answer I was going to give is that Richard Hart trolls you by talking about his quest for getting laid, and also how like this is it kind of is Richard Hart summarizes the rational male in a sense. That's a lot of what this chapter was. And then there's just like random tidbits of information as well.
That's exactly the stuff that was going through my head, bro. Okay, so how about this for an idea? You do know how like Hex copied a lot of like what Bitcoin was doing, and then he just basically added like a yielding strategy on top of it. And now he's copied over like how Ethereum is with Pulse. Do you think he was doing the same thing with the books? This is like his pre-Hex whole thing.
Look, if
Well,
you
so
told me this entire thing was a big joke, I would fully believe you. And Nate, I think you might be onto something there, which is, and if anything, I think it's actually on brand with what he's saying in this book, which is that I'm pretty sure he said previously that you'll never have original ideas. You're pretty much only making iterations on existing things. That's kind of what he's done.
Yep. Hey, he's putting his money where his mouth is. Now, I will say that in respect to the a lot of the stuff from the Rational Mail, Richard Hart did a lot of work with mystery and mystery. Eric von Markovic, shoot, who are the other, like the early 2000s pickup artists, Chateau Hartiste, Royce, Rouge V, all those dudes, they're all about the same age, and they all went through the beginning internet phase at about the same time. So a lot of their work is very similar. A lot of the stuff that you see from Richard Hart, you're going to see in the mystery method. A lot of the stuff that you see from Rollo Tomasi, you're going to also see with oh shoot, who is that lumberjack guy? Oh, I can't remember. But like a lot of the manosphere people all came up through the internet around about the same time. And so a lot of the stuff, like them talking about amogging, them talking about like all of the technical words that Rollo uses in all of his books, it's just part of like the manosphere lingo. Richard Hart was a part of that, which is one of the really cool really cool. I think it's really cool. It's just kind of nifty to think about like people that have had major influence on my life, like kind of like crossed paths at certain different points and things. So I think that's a cool and nifty part about the book. And yeah, Richard Hart was much more in the pickup artistry world than in like the Rational Mail, which is talking about like the way that the stuff works and the praxeology behind all of not praxeology, or is it praxeology? It might be the wrong word.
Psychology you're talking about of like women and men and how all that works.
Yeah. So Rollo talks about like, you know, the science behind it and the way that it works. He likes to say often that he opens up the hood and he looks at how the engine runs. He's not a mechanic. He doesn't fix things. He just talks about what is.
Type of guy.
Exactly, nuts and bolts and stuff. So anyway, so I thought that was interesting. But Zenith, I'm glad to hear that that you're still with us, bro, despite all this other stuff.
Brother, I'm in this for the long haul. I know I'm kind of giving Richard flack right now, but at the same time, he does make some very good points that like I hadn't really thought of previously, and we'll get to those in a bit. But I do just want to point this out there because this is one of those things. And I know we actually got, in my opinion, 2 gems through along the same lines of if you are hungry and don't eat, that's a good way of saving money. The first one was that if you want to pick up girls better, don't walk between clubs, run between clubs so that you have more time to hit on girls.
Oh, he said that? Oh my God. Yeah. I don't remember that. That's hilarious.
Yes.
Dude, that's one of those. That's a perfect example of like when I explain like a Richard Hart ism right there. It's like he's got these weird ways of mentioning things like, oh, you could save like a couple of seconds by running between clubs or whatever. It's like be most efficient possible. Like
that reminds
what Zenith is doing right there is exactly what I do every single time I hear that shit.
Well, that reminds me of him talking about pennies in front of freight trains. You know, if you're running between clubs, then you're picking up pennies in front of freight trains. So I don't know. Well, I will give him the benefit of the doubt that perhaps he has updated his worldview. And I'm sure that if we were to see Richard Hart clubbing today, I don't think he'd be running in between venues, something along those lines. But yeah, there's some funny stuff in his older takes. I'd be curious to see what kind of stuff people look at the DGen roundtable at like years in the future when they look at like episode 5 or some shit and they see us all like stumbling over our shoelaces and they're like, man, these guys are idiots or whatever. So like I'll give him a little bit of grace in that sense. Zenith, you were going to say something and I think I cut you off there.
No, you're good. I was going to say like you're entirely correct there, which is that if you, I'm sure one day we're all rich and successful multi-millionaires and people go look back at the early episodes, like me in particular. I'm sure you can probably go back and find times where I'm just talking over myself, making jokes that don't land, and then I don't know, just like scratching my beard way too much, which I've been trying to be better at. Because
that's good. I like that.
Yeah,
I like
that's
that.
True,
bro.
The other thing I have is my second Richard-ism was that he's talking about when before people try to give you their tale of woe, you need to give them some sort of distraction to get them off their game. And his example was like, so how do you like drinking pizza through a straw?
Yeah, that was a pretty shitty example, I will say. I will agree with you on that one. I think the point is like, when people are being miserable, you try and distract them from their misery so that they can stop being miserable because that ruins everyone's day. That
You
might
know,
be my graceful interpretation there.
actually, I think you're right on to something. Okay, so when I head into work in the past, right? When you like go to a Walmart or whatever, you're like, okay, time to go to work. It's Monday. Nobody's happy, right? I started deciding what I was going to do is instead of saying good morning, everybody, I was going to start saying good evening. You wouldn't believe how that tiny little change just threw people off and made people go, huh? And their demeanor completely changed. I'm not going to lie, though. What's weird is that people's demeanor changed to the upside, to the more happier side.
Oh,
It was
that's
weird.
cool. I'm gonna
Well, it
try
was
that, Nate.
I think yeah, you should. No, I don't know what it is though. Like, was it because it was just something different that made people stop and start thinking?
Yeah, maybe it's just
you're
like
coming
they're
out of the
not.
gate with a tampon, bro. That's all it is.
Yeah, apple tampon. Sam, can you describe to the folks at home what is apple tampon if they might not know?
I suppose, yeah. So like the premise to the apple tampon like humor base is that you like humor, like a lot of genuine humor is found in a setup that you're expecting and not getting what you're expecting. That's why like memes are generally so hilarious when they are, is because like the first thing you see in the meme like makes you think you're gonna see something else, and like the caption's totally something different. Or like I shared one the other day of like a picture of Jesus in a hospital room with like people having surgery on someone's heart, and all the doctors are in there, and look, the photo is like obviously it's him guiding the doctor's hand like in the surgery, right? But somebody captioned it like, bro, why are you taking out that tumor I put in there?
That's a funny one.
It's like,
I will say Richard a pretty good joke, and I like this one a lot in the chapter, which was that there's a nurse working late on a shift and she's fumbling in her pockets and pulls out a rectal thermometer and says, "Ah, shit, I lost my pen."
Yep, that was a good one as well. Oh man, and it's good because like it gets the people thinking, and that's what Nate's greeting does, and that's what the apple tampon does, is it gets people thinking where they're normally on autopilot. So here's the thing I think about that, like with humor. Oh, and one of the other things he mentioned in the book was like it's called a punchline, not a gentle caress line. You're supposed to come and like fucking smack them out of reality. You're not supposed to like ease them and nudge them on into happiness. It's like, bam, you're happy now, motherfucker. So like, oh shit, what was I gonna say? I was saying something and then I forgot, and then I got
We were talking
lost
about
on.
apple tampon, but I mean, it also is kind of the comedic rule that like funny things come in threes, and then also when you do the pattern disruption and you subvert the expectations, that is what can give you a good punchline. So I mean, an example is there was back in high school, the ancient days, where I was doing an improv class, and there was an exercise where there's someone kind of watching the scene going out, and if they don't like an answer you give, they hit a bell to ding you, and you have to come up with a new line. And then in one of them, this like guy's playing a dad, and his daughter asks like, "Dad, can I have a giraffe?" And he says yes, and then he gets dinged, and then he says no, and he gets dinged, and then he sternly looks at her and goes, "You can have two."
I like that. I like this joke stuff. We should come up with more jokes more often, or well, at least we should share our jokes. Perhaps one day we can put them up in the not safe for work section of the meme thing. But we've gone over Zenith's favorite part of the book. Sam, I'm going to toss it over to you, and then Nate, I'll give you one final go around, and then we'll start going through these fucking quotes that we've got collected up in my fancy little library. So Sam, do you have a particular part of this bookity book that stuck out to you, my friend?
yes, there was one spot, actually, I think it was near the beginning of the chapter, where one of the quotes he said was speak at scale. And it made me think about the concept of the conversation you and I are actually having the other day, Will, about like, wealthy people, important people who are solving big problems, all of those kinds of people, they don't like, they're wasting time if they're not having lunch with somebody, right? And the concept is like the conversations you're having are with people to solve problems, or you are like the speaking at scale thing is it's about like, if you're going to be saying something important, you might help more people if you spoke it in a way like on YouTube or broadcast it in some way that somebody could hear it and like do something different and improve, right? Especially today when it's so easy to put anything on the internet. Like what came to mind immediately was like, wow, maybe like every phone call I have with my brother here needs to just be live streamed because we talk about a lot of great things, but also there's a lot of things we probably shouldn't talk about on a live stream. So like
This is very true.
that's what came to mind. But that was one of my favorite things is like, wow, I mean, how can I take advantage of the like not just speaking at scale, but living at scale, right? So
Yeah.
I am trying to promote my brand, which is Bungalows for Bachelors. And it's like, how more can I show everything that I'm doing and have somebody else benefit from it? So like that's what I work on. But like that, I enjoyed that part.
Excellent. Excellent. Mr. Nate, tossing it over to you. And I see that you put up a quote in the chat. So we can launch right into that if you'd like, or if there's anything in particular in the book that you liked other than that, now would be the time for us to touch on it.
Yeah, that quote actually really stuck out to me because it was something that I kind of learned, right?
Okay.
It's like,
So before we
No.
we get into it, can I read it? If are we gonna launch down this
Go
all right,
right
sweet.
ahead, go ahead.
So for the folks at home, Nate put up a fantastic quote in the book club. For those of you guys who have not read it, it is again, the book club telegram is t.me/dgen book club, all one word. And this is actually message number 397. But sometimes it is better to construct controlled, non-harmful drama. Otherwise, you'll just invite her, meaning your wife, your girlfriend, your novia, whatever, to bring in or construct made-up drama into the relationship. And so this kind of ties back into what we were talking about earlier with the rational male and with pickup artistry, but this is more specific in terms of like marriage and relationship stuff and things of that nature. So Nate, why don't you go ahead and speak a little bit about this quote, because I think this is great. I'm glad you put this in there.
Yeah, it's a fantastic idea. One thing that I've kind of learned throughout my life is that whenever you get like a girlfriend, or even a girl that is just a friend, right? You can end up being kind of the what would you call that, emotional tampon, right? Where it's like, oh, I need to have my emotions, and I'm I want some thrill, or I want to be scared, or there's a lot of different things that women tend to just they have this desire for emotion, right? To feel emotions. And how do you feel emotions? Yeah, ups and downs through drama generally, right? And so what I found is that if you just kind of let girls, especially a girl, that is very close to you, like say a wife or a girlfriend, just kind of float in the wind. Eventually, one of her friends is doing something. She's going to bring it right smack at you and like, oh my god, blah blah blah. Or you didn't do something that she's upset about, and then she blows it all out of proportion, right? And then what I've always noticed is after like the fight or whatever, all that drama that happened, then all of a sudden it's like, she loves you again, right? And she just wants to cuddle and snuggle and things like that. And what I started realizing is like, you know what if I do this so that way it's like, it's not like I get home from a very stressful day and all of a sudden here comes all the drama at my face, right? It's like, okay, I can tell that something's building up here, so maybe I should there's a small little thing that she said, and I can blow this up myself to make it drama for her. And then she can get all mad at me or whatever. But it's in a perfect time when neither of us are drunk, neither of us are stressed out from our days at work. It's a very controlled situation, and I can cause this drama. And then there's a whole lot of drama that you just kind of you kind of build up. Let her just sort of throw in your face, and
it's
then
like a pressure relief valve, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then you can kind of just like settle it down very slowly, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, now to the good stuff. Let's go snuggle on the couch and watch a show, and she's like good for a month or two, until the next time comes around. That's just something that I've learned in my life. So as soon as I heard him talking about that, I was like, oh my god, that's not a crazy idea, I guess, because somebody else has thought of it. Neat. So yeah, it stuck out to me.
That's awesome, bro. I like that. And the main idea of this is there's going to be drama with women. So you can either one, be the creator and the controller, or two, you can roll the dice and you can see what happens as a result, right? So it's like, which do you want to be? Do you want to let her drive the ship, or do you want to drive the ship? Like, she needs her fix. She needs her like, her little slam of heroin every now and again, or like they need to sniff that crack pipe or something. They need that drama in their life, that indignation. So you could either be the impetus or the one that brings it about, or you can just like, let her do her thing on her terms, and then who knows where the fucking ship's going. So I like that a lot. I'm glad you brought
I
that
would
up,
like
Oz.
to kind of throw out there too. It's not like it's a bad thing either, because
Correct.
this is what makes men men and women women. It's actually it can be a fantastic thing for I guess you could say breaking up the monotony of life, right? Having a woman be like, oh, this happened, that happened, blah blah blah, type of thing, right? So it's not like it's bad, okay? But it can be very destructive at the wrong time. Hence why being able to put it in a controlled situation is going to be a heck of a lot better for you and your relationship.
Excellent. I like that. Mr. Sam, Mr. Zenith, do you guys have any thoughts on this topic?
Controlled opposition.
All right.
Fair
Is that-
enough.
Is that where it ends? Sam, can you please explain what you mean by controlled opposition?
Well, it's like basically if you're playing a game of like a lifelong game of chess with your significant other, whatever word you want to use, because like what's the word I'm looking for? Relationships are like on a men's reproductive goal is combative with women's reproductive goal, and that like they're different. So if you're playing this game of chess over life, then it's much better to like play a game of chess where you are getting the other person to make the moves that you'd like them to make, right?
Ooh.
It's basically like, I guess everything's manipulation on some level, right? If I'm selling something to you, I'm trying to manipulate you, but like basically, like I want to play a game of chess where it seems like we're having this great battle back and forth, but ultimately, like I'm leading you to make the moves that I want you to make, kind of thing. So you're controlling the opposition, or at least you hope so, until you find out you're not, and then you get the good old divorce. But hey,
well, that's just like good leadership, is understanding that you're going to make mistakes, but still like leading in the direction that you think things like should go, and making the more rational and reasonable and well thought through decisions, as opposed to like letting it be a crapshoot and just kind of stumbling your way through it. So like it's good leadership to understand that like there's going to be problems, there's going to be hiccups and things like that, and you work through it. And sometimes you learn with divorces, and sometimes you learn with, I don't know, whatever the marriage is, I guess the opposite of divorce. But yeah, Zenith, I saw you give a thumbs up earlier. Do you have any final thoughts before we move on to the next topic?
Yeah, I had two thoughts. So controlled opposition, and then I don't know why, but Nate, this subject made me remember another great Richardism. But the idea when it comes to controlled opposition is like, sure, if you can anticipate moves, that's very good. However, it's very easy to fall into the hubris of believing that you always hold all the cards. Part of the reality of the world is that there's so many more people than you that you can't possibly know what every single person is going to be doing. And even inside of that controlled sphere that is your life, there's still so many people you interact with on a daily basis. It's damn near impossible to try to anticipate everything, let alone have a thought out solution for it all. So is it possible in very specific scenarios and strategies to have controlled opposition? Yes, absolutely. In fact, I'm here to tell you it's probably a good thing. AKA, this is just called handling rejections or anticipating rejections. Shout out to everybody in sales who knows what I'm talking about. But outside of that, I mean, kind of the randomness of life and the diverse views of people you get is kind of excellent. And then as far as the Richardism that I remembered, it was specifically, I think it was after a section where he was talking about how tattoos and piercings on a person show that they take risk-taking behavior, which means they're more likely to have risk-taking activities, which is they're more likely to sleep with you. And he said, if you think about it, the people with the most popular last name are the ones that have reproduced the most. So therefore, those are the people that are most likely to sleep with you.
Yeah. Also, if they have a child, because that she had to have sex and able to have that child, and so now that means that she's more likely to have sex with you. It's like, oh, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, that's what you do.
Right.
You go down the street and you see like a mom and her kids walking by, and you point and you say, that one had sex.
Especially if her last name is Smith and she's got tattoos, then that's fucking checking all the boxes, baby. Actually, so there, like, not to detract a little bit too much, but the reason that Smith is such a common name is like back during the medieval times when people's last name was like related to their occupation. The people who didn't get killed and sent off to war were the guys who made the fucking weapons and the armor, and so all the Smiths are the reason like they wouldn't go out and die as often as shoemaker or I don't know whatever hay baler or something, right? And so that's one of the reasons that Smith is such a common last name, is because the people that were like Smiths, they died less often, and so they therefore got to reproduce more. And it was a more well sought after job. And smithing is always in fashion. So fun little fact there for the.
We got to give our respect to the Schumachers, because at least one person, their lineage ended up being a very decorated F1 race car driver. So, I mean, the Italians, they did themselves proud there.
Yep, absolutely. Schumacher, good for them. I don't know who you're talking about, but I'm glad to hear that there's an Italian shoemaker who made his way up into the race cars world. And
Michael Schumacher, Italian F1 champion, I think in the early 2000s. He drove for Ferrari. He was very good. And then we met these two guys named Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen, and they are in a class of their own.
I'm willing to bet, Zenith, that you're a racing fan.
A little bit. My dad is a big one. God, my dad, realizing, yeah, my dad likes watching America's Cup sail racing, and then he also enjoys watching F1, and he enjoys watching ski racing. It's like, wow, I feel like we're...
And so you get proximal and vicarious
There's
knowledge.
A theme.
Yeah.
This is true.
That's
I mean, he also
cool.
kind of taught me to do a good bit of that stuff myself, which is whenever people ask for like a good, like a fun fact to introduce yourself, I made a funny one when I was going through basic training. I was like, yes, I am the local sail racing champion of a nearby elderly community, which is that I learned to race sailboats with a bunch of old people at this lake. And the great irony is that it sounds like a joke, but those people are actually hard because they know what they're doing, and it's not a sport that requires physical strength. So
yeah.
When you sneak out a win against the olds, oh, that's a win.
That's a win, because they got the knowledge, they got the expertise, they just don't have the muscle fiber and the reflex speed. So
it's true, dude. They have the patience. They just they know what course to set, how to trim the sails, and they'll hold it, and they know it's perfect. And it's just how do you beat that?
Yep, that's fucking awesome. I love it. All right, guys, we've got a little bit off topic. I forgot what we were even talking about. What we've covered. That's all good. I enjoy these, but I'm the host, and I'm here to reel us back into the direction we're supposed to go. By the way, just so you guys know, since we're doing it live, I've lost access to my laptop's internet, so I can't see the chats that are going on. So shout out to all the folks at home that are doing the chats. Zenith, if you would be so kind as to just let me know when an appropriate time is for us to do chat shout outs again, I'll hold up the sign, and I would just I'd like you to read them, or I could read them as they come up on screen. Either way works. But we're gonna cover another fun and fancy little quotable quote. And as a matter of fact, Zenith just dropped a quote in the Telegram, and so I'm going to read that, and that's the next one that we're going to cover. Testing people is a one-direction reward schedule, and it only gets worse. Now, Zenith, I'm not entirely sure what you mean by this or what Richard meant by this. I thought that when he was talking about the testing, it was about verification and like testing locks on doors, or testing alarm systems to make sure that they still work and thing. Can you describe what you meant by this quote, perhaps?
Yeah, so what you're referring to and what I'm talking to actually are two separate parts in the book, both good parts. But this one in particular is talking about the idea of kind of like testing people in your life, and how it's really only a negative EV play. This is surrounding the idea that, like Richard's saying, that there's a lot of people that you really don't want in your life, and that if you're looking to cut people, maybe you should. But with this one in particular, it was the idea that if you're testing people, then it means there's really only a few options. The first one is that they pass, which means nothing happens. They pass. They win nothing. They lose nothing. They are exactly where you thought they were. Step two is they fail, in which case they have only lost out and you are only disappointed in them. Step three is that it is inconclusive, in which case you have just wasted everyone's time. Or step four is they discover that you're testing them and they are upset about it, in which case you have possibly damaged the relationship. This was, I think, in relation to the idea where he was talking about how, no, this was separate, but there was another one where he's like, the best way to avoid scammers is to always be counter testing people, because under that assumption, that means that like if 10% of people are testing scammers, then that the 10% of that means that only 1% of those people will ever get scammed. It was very reductive logic. But anyways, back to the testing people thing in your life. When it comes to like personal friends and people close to you, the idea here is that by testing people, you're only looking for negative results, which means that you're only going to find negative things or you're going to find nothing.
I
And if you
I
find
remember
nothing,
that.
it's
Yeah.
positive.
Go ahead, Nate.
Well, okay, so is there always a neutral? Neutral would be no, actually, because it's only negative or positive. There is no neutral, because neutral would technically be just you don't know. And so if you don't know, you're always neutral with somebody, and that somebody could either harm you or they could be your best friend in the world, right? So when you're testing them and you're testing for negatives, right? You then need to think about like, okay, well, all I found is negatives, sure. But how many negatives did you find? Like a couple negatives as in like a human would. But look at all these positives, right? So it's kind of like cons versus the positives versus, oh my God, it's nothing but negative. This person probably toxic in my life. And now instead of being neutral, which is I don't know, now it's just like, oh my God, this guy is toxic. Get him out of my life. He's dragging me down. And that's my thought.
There was another point in the chapter, and I don't think it has much to do with this, where he was talking about firing instead of forgiving. Do you guys remember that? It was basically the premise of like, if you forgive people that are employed, and you know, I'm sure that there's some sort of nuance that I'm missing here, but it's like if you forgive people that make mistakes, then you give them more opportunity to make worse mistakes. And if you fire them immediately, then like, yeah, you know, one person probably suffers, but the rest of everyone else sees like, oh, small mistake means fired. Better not make small mistake. Some sort of like mental shift or some sort of like, I don't know if zeitgeist is the right word, something like that. But is that having anything to do with this quote as well, Zenith, or is this? I know this is geared more towards friendship and stuff, and testing.
Honestly, this one was, I think, was more geared towards dating, if I remember correctly. But to your point,
oh, okay,
that is the other one. I didn't really have much more on the testing thing other than like understanding that with your personal stuff, with personal connections, testing people really only has negative EV out of it, or expected value, which is that like you're not really going to gain anything out of it, and if anything, you're only giving other people more things to lose. But to your point about that other example you just brought up, which is the forgive or fire, that is specifically when he's referring to if you are trying to accomplish things, and like employees, for instance, is that in his estimation, Richard Hart believes the idea that people don't really change, and they're not going to change for you, especially. Maybe they'll change for themselves, but not in a way that you expect. So in his calculation of this thing, he says that if you want to get things done and you want to improve, the best way is not to try to fix people or fix things, but to just replace it. And this is also under the assumption that this is very much like a first world 21st century 2020, like a very, very modern idea, which is that because he believes that things are in such abundance when it comes to worker supply and also the quality of worker, it's the idea that you don't have to spend time to fix things. You can just go get something else that already works. And that he believes the same kind of thing applies with employees. Like there are the employees that will work and there are the ones that won't. I think that this might be a bit of a half-baked idea, which is that like this completely ignores the idea of like training and learning and like all the progression that comes with like normal human growth and activity. But when it comes to like an engineering standpoint, if you have a part, yeah, sure, it's probably just easier to replace it. But at the same time, in my personal opinion, like people aren't parts, people are people. You can absolutely teach people. Some of them are not conducive to learning, in which case, yeah, that might be best to fire those people. But odds are you can train people up a good bit, and they just need the proper incentive motivation to do so. This I guess, oh God, Uncle Z is going on a rant here. I apologize.
Do it.
But this is a story back when I was a young cadet on a ship during the summer, and we were having dinner in the wardroom, and I accidentally started a fight between the local warrant officer and the second in command on the ship, who was a lieutenant at the time. And it was the idea of, do you try to fix people or do you just fire them and look for a new, better person? And the concept came around with how the Coast Guard was treating people at the time. And it was definitely, the culture was shifting towards a policy of kind of like a one and done mentality when it comes to larger things such as like DUIs or like even DWIs or DWIs. And then the warrant officer was like, this is not the guard that I came up in, because we used to build great coasties. We didn't expect great coasties. And then at the other end of this, at the other end of the table, we have the executive officer on the ship who is in the position of managing people and managing the ship and operations. It could just be a difference in perspectives, which is where you are can change how you look at the people around you and how they can fit into the system or how they can work and adapt, which is that if you are one of the people like the warrant officer who's in charge of a division, who's in charge of personnel and material and actually like maintaining the engine room, he was the main propulsion assistant at the time. He's a person who's like, I have limited resources. I have what I have. I can't go find new people in the middle of the ocean. Versus the executive officer, who's the second in command, he's very much in charge of managing personnel from that top-down perspective, which is that you look at the pieces you have, and you also know that you have the ability to reach out elsewhere, which means that your assets and your tools are different. So if you do have personnel issues, theoretically, you have the ability to like reach out to a detailer or somebody in like the Coast Guard HR department, effectively be like, hey, we have a position open on the ship. I need it filled now. Send someone. It's that perspective shift. And I think this is a fundamental question that people have been wrestling with for a long, long time, which is, do you build great people or do you expect great people? Do you fix people or do you fire them?
Okay, so I think this is what I've always called the human element. And this is what I despise about corporations, because corporations are psychopathic. They don't really think about humans. They think about robots. And so like that makes a lot of sense the way they you put that there, where it's kind of like, okay, so do we actually need this person to fill in a spot? I can't exactly get someone in the middle of the ocean, right? That makes a lot of sense, right? How about this? What if you take it and you're just on land, you're in a corporation, you're working at a McDonald's, right? Let's just make it super simple and silly, right? You're working at a McDonald's and somebody is not frying the burgers correctly. Okay, they're not frying the burgers correctly. Why not? Okay, now is this a situation where you fix or you fire and rehire? You could easily, as McDonald's, you could easily hire someone in, right? Okay, how about this though? What if the human element is there? Maybe the person didn't understand something. Okay, now you have to do the fixing. Okay, so I guess the majority of us here, or as I'm going to assume, the majority of us here would say, trying to teach someone how to properly fry the burgers, aka fixing them, is probably going to be worth it, right? What if somebody usually is really good, but they're having a bad day? Again, do you just fire them or do you try and fix them? Maybe all they need is a break, So this is where the human element always bothers the crap out of me, because you can tell in a corporation when they're starting to kind of like shoo you off and get rid of you, because obviously laws, right? And that's that firing thing, right? They're just like, get rid of. Whereas I've noticed many times this person has a good brain and they can really do good. They just need guidance, aka the fixing. But then on the flip side, right, there's also those people that are like, no, I'll do better, and they just don't get it. No matter how much you try to help them, they become a time sink, where you're constantly trying to teach them and they just don't get any better. They're lazy, and that's when you need to fire quickly. So I would say that the whole idea of putting that human element, like you need to look at your logistics, right? But with that included, you also need to add in that human element of like, okay, what is this person? What is this human who acts like a human, who emotes like a human, right? Where does that equal out into there? And in the future, if this human does learn and does a good job, is it going to do better than a normal person you just would have hired on anyways? Right?
Oh, yeah. You like quantify the number of like the value of, like, if you want to look at it mathematically and like really frigidly from a logical perspective, which is that's the direction that I want to take it, because relying on emotion and relying on intuition seems like an inconclusive or like I can't give good generalized advice on that, but I were to say, like from a base standpoint, you basically have to look at people and you have to see like, hey, does this guy require a lot of effort in order, like a lot of my effort in order for me to get the thing that I want out of him? Is he essentially a high leverage person or is he a low leverage person? Right? Is he going to generate lots of returns for minimal effort, or is he going to generate like medium for medium or like low for high amounts of effort or something like that? And this is where it's important to be discerning and to be able to read people into like really see a person's character and something like that, so you can assign accurate numbers or quantitative values or something. But essentially, like, if you're hanging out with people that are always sapping your energy away and sapping away your resources, then it's like you have to cut the line off somewhere. Or like I think what Richard perhaps might be suggesting in here is only chase after high leverage opportunities and cut out everything, because like I think that Richard is, and fairly so because he's a billionaire, I think he has an abundance mentality, right? And so with that abundance mentality, much like your XO Zenith and much like the corporations you're describing, Nate, like the abundance mentality will allow you to just be like, okay, well, I don't need you, I don't need this anymore, I'm just going to go get another one, which is
Yeah.
it's not necessarily good, it's not necessarily bad, it's a tool that can be used, it's a tool that can be misused, you know.
Yeah, but you see, like, Jay, brother, I love you, but I mean, I'm gonna completely disagree with you on this one. I think this is a difference between me and Jay. I think we've had this argument before. Uh,
I think
no,
this is a
when
technicality. This is a
yeah,
disagreement on
yeah. When you
definitions.
have the
We're not here
largest
to play Merriam-Webster.
companies with the most amount of people, right, who are employing the most amount of people, then it's heartless as all hell, and they do treat people like that on the average. And that is the majority of corporations versus the small mom and pop shops. Those are the people that are just trying to get by, and they actually have a heart because they themselves have that human element of just trying to survive. Anybody else that's employed, they feel for them as well. So that's why they still show people that human element versus just get rid of you because the policy says so.
Okay,
gonna
so
uh
I'm gonna jump right in here, guys.
Go ahead,
I'm
Sam.
pretty sure this was in the book. If not, I heard it from somewhere else. But when the debate becomes about debating the meaning of a word, the debate is debatedly over.
Yes. Yes, that's what I was gonna. Man, I'm glad you mentioned that, Sam. All right, guys, thank you for your comment, Jay. I appreciate it. And you and Nate, you guys are just gonna hash out your ability to write a better Webster Merriam dictionary on the off chats. You guys can go start up a little Telegram and start creating words and definitions. Hell, you can join our good friend Jeff when it comes to making definitions and things. More information on that to follow in the near days. Someday similar, or someday soon. But Sam, I'm glad that you hopped in there, because I'm going to actually toss this next quote on over to you, my friend, my brother. The next thing that we're going to cover, we're going to do a hard transition here, is the uglier you are, the more your mistakes will cost you. And this was a fun part of the book where Richard was talking about the positive and the negative externalities of being physically attractive versus like the things that you do and the way that people perceive you and the way that they treat you versus like like people they consider to be unattractive. Essentially, the leverageability of attractiveness. So, Mr. Sam, the uglier you are, the more mistakes, or the more your mistakes will cost you. What sparked your interest about this particular quote, my brother?
Well, this just the way he framed it, right? Because you don't normally think about it that way. Normally, you think about like, okay, life's easier being attractive or whatever. Like that's how most people are somewhat aware of that idea, right? If you've ever
100%.
been in like you go like wear a nice suit or whatever. Like I'm not saying you got to be Mr. Chad six pack, but if you like dress nice, put on a nice suit, put your hair up like you're a dude. Maybe you go like get your eyebrows done and like put on a little bit of lip balm or something. Who knows? But like you go out to Walmart or whatever looking like that, everybody is going to look at you differently and treat you differently. It's going to be better. Most of the time. Sometimes people are like jealous, right? But whatever. So what I enjoyed about this quote was that it really describes, like you said, it's the leverage on like your looking goodness, right? Your attractiveness. And I think I'm going to tie this in actually a little bit to, oh, there goes my, hold on. Let me fix this real quick. My
We
GPU
lost him.
struggles.
We do it live.
So I'm going to tie this into a topic I was talking about yesterday on my stream. I was talking about the psychology of architecture and people in spaces and all this, that, and the other. And basically, when if you put on nice clothes and you look nice, what you're doing is you're making the space around yourself be a space of someone who's attractive. And people want to be part of your space when that happens, which gives you leverage. If you're attractive and someone's walking up to you, there's some possibility likely in the back of their head that they're going to interact with you and gain something from it, whether it's like a connection or a phone number or just a pleasant conversation or whatever it may be. Like, you are emanating energy of I get stuff done, I stay clean, I stay organized, I'm a positive force in my life, and I can affect that with other people. And other people are attracted to that because they want the same things too. Maybe they can't get it for themselves, they don't have the discipline to, or whatever. And so because they want the thing that you already have, there's your leverage. And so when you apply that to a business deal or something like that, I mean, it's like when you you can use that leverage in a lot of positive ways. And I just enjoyed the quote because it's funny to think about things framed negatively sometimes, because yes, if you're ugly and you don't do anything about it or whatever, then you're going to have less leverage than somebody who is not.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like
Sam,
that.
I want to get your take on Richard's idea of beauty. I think it especially comes out in this chapter because he talks about it in multiple different ways. Obviously, he's talking about the way you're talking about, and the idea that if you are more beautiful, you're not going to be as punished for mistakes that you make, versus if you're not attractive, people are going to be more quick to point those out and use it against you. Additionally, he talks a lot about dancing in this chapter, which I find kind of funny. But one of the things he specifically talks about there is that dancing amplifies your body, and that if you're attractive, good dancing will show that you have a good body, and if you don't have a good body, it'll amplify very quickly that you don't have a good body. It seems weird to me that Richard talks about beauty so much in this chapter, even though all of us know what Richard Hart looks like.
So, yes.
This is one of those things where in my head, I'm just imagining that scene. It's like one of the opening scenes from The Highest of Stakes where he's twerking in a Gucci suit in front of a G-Wagon and a Ferrari. And I'm just yes, the point of this being funny is that it's Richard Hart and he's a fat guy doing these things that are not supposed to be done by men or people of his stature. That's the joke. But at the same time, it seems like in this book, he's not joking about beauty and what it can do for your life. Yet for a guy like him, who theoretically has all the time in the world now that he has all the money in the world, it just feels like cognitive dissonance to me. What do you think about beauty in this context?
Well, he did mention that he needed to lose weight, though, in the book.
Yep, several times. He acknowledges the cognitive dissonance, I will say, and I agree with you, Zenith. I think that Richard should go get jacked and juicy and fucking dress well and not make a clown out of himself.
I don't understand the fashion thing either. He has such a weird fashion sense, and he makes such a point about having the fashion as well. Yet in the
most
same
of it
time,
was for eyeballs, for marketing.
I understand the outrage marketing thing, but for me, I just look at this chapter and some of the other chapters we talked about in the book. It's Richard hones in on the idea that your messaging and how you pitch sales is super important. How you look is important. How you dress is important. How you keep your body is important. All these things, yet it seems like he follows none of it.
Well, if you watch his older streams where he still wore the top hat and stuff, that would be where he was actually living that kind of ethos. I would just venture to guess something like that. And then once the Gucci and then what's that?
He does mention in the book about how it's kind of like his angle is the messaging of being interesting, right? And he did mention in this chapter that he wears strange clothes because he'd rather have people questioning him. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And that was his take.
I hear you. At the same time, though, for me, it just seems like he's pitching just the ideal way to do things in the best possible scenario. Hell, that's why he's even writing the self-help book. I think partly it might be a little bit out of hubris, but that's a personal take.
100%.
It seems like I just don't understand why he does the thing that he does when he writes like this and talks about all these ideas. And it's like, clearly you understand them, or this entire book is just a big joke on me. So I'm stuck at this, like, it's very, for my poker fans out there, the hand he's presenting is very polarizing. He either has the royal flush or he has absolutely nothing and he's just trying to bluff me.
That's a good analogy. I like that. That's fun. So moving past the cognitive dissonance and the shoot, what's the fuck hypocrisy. Moving past the cognitive dissonance and the hypocrisy, there's actually some pretty fun statistics that that come to mind when I thought about the uglier you are, the more your mistakes will cost you. And one of the more interesting ones that I've found, and perhaps this doesn't have to do with beauty, but there's a definitive difference in the Western judicial system governing punishments doled out to men and punishments doled out to women for the same crimes. And I would argue that, like, you know, the attractiveness or the desirability or the mental what is it called, like the lizard brain whatever, things that happen that lead to like common results. Women spend about 60% as much time in prison for men for the same crimes, something like that. And so, like, the general principle, and I don't know, I might be stretching the reasoning here, but women are, like, I think that most people can agree that women are prettier than men, right? And women spend less time in jail. Now, I'm sure that there's a whole bunch of other reasons for it, but this is kind of like what spurred the thought in my head is like, man, why do women spend less time in jail for the same crimes? And there's a whole bunch of things, but I think it basically boils down to, like, we treat things that we like better than we treat things that we don't like, something along those lines. And so, like, when something that you don't like does something else that you don't like, you hate it a lot more than when something you like does something you don't like. You know, like person you admire does something you're not fond of. Like, you'll be more inclined to forgive them, more inclined to give them more leeway. I can't remember the example. I think he was talking about, like, if like a girl that you think is really pretty says that she hates dogs and you love dogs, you might be more inclined to say, like, oh, well, you know, that's an interesting opinion. I wonder why that is. As opposed to, like, if someone you don't like, let's say just some tweaker or whatever, like some tweaker homeless person walks up to you on the side of the road and they smell bad and they got teeth missing and they're like, I don't like dogs. They're like, oh, get the fuck away from me. Fuck you. You know, like different response based on like levels of attractiveness and things. So the point of this like little piece of advice is basically, like, it behooves oneself to maximize the leverage of attractive ability in order to, like, change your life and have more pleasant experiences. And I think that that's like the core principle of this fun little quote and anything. And I would be interested to see Richard Hart changing his appearance to better maximize his public persona and the zeitgeist and everything like that. So, ladies and germs, that's a good stopping point for this particular topic. Mr. Zenith, I think it's a good time to go ahead and do some chat shout-outs. Are you ready to do some chat shout-outs, my friend?
You are absolutely correct. It is a great time to do chat shout-outs. I am ready. So, if we have our third member of the party ready to go as well, we will get into it. Starting off with our first and good friend, Hex Glenn, saying, what's up? Good to see you, brother. Up next, we have another friend of the channel. Very unique take on emojis. Moondog was going on. He says, love and light. Love it, my man. You're going to have to explain this to me one day because I feel like a bit lost on some of them. But
so Moondog is a super cool cat. I've met him in real life. We did back when the Hex meetup chat had first started. Moondog was like one of the OGs that came to the very first Hex meetup that I organized. So big shout out to Moondog, dude. Super cool, super awesome. Zenith, you would really like him if you met him in real life one day, bro. He is super cool. Got lots of interesting things to say. And you know, the character of like using the web dings communication and the emojis and everything, it's all part of the Zaz. And he's like that in real life too. He obviously doesn't speak using emojis, but like, man, it's super cool having a conversation with Moondog. So shout out Moondog. That's what I got for that. Take it away again, Zenith, unless we got no more.
Oh, we got plenty more, don't you worry. Up next,
go ahead.
We got Danny Ortiz. He says, hello everyone, just got here. Glad you made it, Danny. I think you got here pretty early, so you didn't miss out on too much, and you got a lot of good stuff. I think we've had some good conversation on this one. Up next, we got Hexagon Lost in Asia says, yes, like the smash, let go! Good to see you, brother. Even though you're late and you missed the strip club music intro. It's okay, we still love you. Alrighty, longtime friend of the channel, Moonpilled Rational Optics. He says, the art and science of teaching people isn't a skill easily developed. I would agree, 100%. It is, yeah. I mean, unfortunately, I think a lot of things that are worthwhile aren't effectively rewarded. And I think that being able to teach people is one of those things that I don't know if there's great reward structures for. So it's kind of hard to keep that talent. Personal opinion, but we already left that conversation. I don't want to reopen it. Alrighty. Up next, we have famed camel trader himself, Fast Abdul. He says, I want 7. 7 you will get. 7 giraffes it is, my man. And last but not least, for this chat shoutout section, we have Anonymous Sucro. I do apologize if I just jacked that up. I'd meow really loud while cleaning the arena. My boss got shortly really... I meow really loud while cleaning the arena, and my boss goes, shut up really loud, and I went meow again. I thought I was having a stroke there for a second, but okay.
I thought so too. I tried reading it like 2 or 3 times before I figured out what was going on there. Anonymous Sucro, thank you very much. I like that you meow at the arenas where you are cleaning and your boss tells you to stop and you say, you're not the boss of me, boss man. What's up? You said that was the end of chat shoutouts, Mr. Zenith?
Yes, sir, it is. We are back to the book.
Excellent. Back to the book. So the next quote that I'm going to bring up for us is one that Mrs. Producer starred for us. So I will go ahead and take the lead on this one since she is running the show behind the scenes. Shout out to Mrs. Producer, by the way. Big round of applause for Mrs. McGettit running the show and doing the camera switches and everything. Thank you so much for everything you do here. Most excellent and appreciated. All right. So this quote goes as follows. Overcomplicating things to look smart is the opposite of being smart. So it'd be really funny if we spent a long time talking about this one, because that would be the opposite of you know, keeping things simple. Keep it simple, stupid. The KISS method, right? But let's go ahead and we're gonna do a little bit different for this particular quote, and I want you guys to think about while I'm monologuing here. I want you guys to think about an occasion where people often over-explain things to other folks, and what they can do, or like something you may have experienced in life where someone has over-explained something to you a whole bunch and you thought it was very annoying, or something you may have noticed that other people do. I want to give some actionable steps for the folks at home. What are some things that people can think about? What are some things that people can avoid in order to not over-explain things to others? I'll go ahead and start with myself while you guys are thinking about some things. And I will say that back when I used to work on the rifle range, I dealt with a lot, like for the Marine Corps, I dealt with about 300 people a day, and like they're basically all, I call them dumb shooters, because it's my range. I'm running this rifle range. There's bullets flying everywhere. It's quite dangerous. And so like I tell them literally every step to do every single day. Like I have to read from a script and give them like a whole bunch of announcements and things, and tell them like where to walk next, when it's time to point their gun down range, when it's time to take the weapon off safe, when they can fire their shots, like to unload their magazine and show it to a buddy so everyone know it's safe. It's crazy stupid Barney style. And the reason it's Barney style is because that's basically the way the Marine Corps goes. It's built for the lowest bidder. Not built for the lowest bidder, but it's built for the lowest common denominator. The silliest, most or least intelligent people can operate in it. But one of the things that I had to do in the Marine Corps is basically break down a very dangerous step, super duper Barney style, and people would often get annoyed and frustrated with like how specific I have to give every single instruction for every single shooters, or for all the shooters and everything they're doing. And so like occasionally as I spent time and got experience running this rifle range, there was a whole bunch of parts of the script that I would cut out that like were unnecessary, and there were things that I would skip in order to make the experience more like I still have to tell them everything that they're doing, but I made it less I made it less insulting and more palatable, because essentially, like, I'm surrounded by grown ass men and women all day long that, like, signed up to fight for their country and things. So the presumption would be they have a little bit of knowledge and they have a little bit of wherewithal, and they don't need to be spoon fed every single thing that they need to do. But there's still a level of specificity that you have to follow and things like that. So that's my own particular little anecdotal story about how I used to over explain things and oversimplify things. It wasn't for the purpose of sounding smart, as Richard Hart was talking about, but that's something that I used to do, that it took a while to figure out, like, what is the exact sequence of events that's like most efficient for me to say to people to get them running through the range properly. But that's my little story. I want to go ahead and toss it around to the panel. Do any of you guys, by show of hands or something, so I can see who to toss it to first, does anyone have something for this topic? Sam, go ahead and take it away, my friend. And then
I've
Zenith
got
after.
something for this topic, good sir. And that is that this is somewhat related to like salesiness, right? Whenever you're having a conversation with anybody, you're usually thinking about the way they're responding, the way they're reacting, if they seem interested. And a general rule of thumb that I try to apply to myself, because I find lots of things interesting to myself because I find them interesting, right? Other people probably don't find them as interesting, especially all the technical details. So here's my simple rule. The simple rule is stop talking about it if they're not asking you more questions about it.
Ooh, I like that.
It's like you can generally tell by someone's tone or mood or responses that, like, oh, they're interested, like, oh, like or oh, really, or whatever, like that. That's like, you can keep working with that. But I find that in most cases, like, nobody wants to hear what you have to talk about. They want to hear what they want to talk about. So you should just do that anyway, because it's more fun.
I'm writing that down in the Telegram room because I want to remember that. That's good. Stop talking about it if they don't have questions. Does anyone have any questions for Sam? All right, excellent. I didn't. Oh man, sorry. That might have been inappropriate, but I thought that it would be funny. I like that that's short, and I like that it's sweet, and I like that it's straight to the point. And I'm reflecting now that I spent a long time basically saying I learned how to give people better instructions, and you just got like straight down there into it. So good work, Sam. You're keeping with the ethos of the book. Mr. Zenith, toss it over to you, bro. What do you got?
I feel kind of weird because I actually have like the inverse of that, which is that if you're doing some sort of presentation or public speaking, especially if you're somebody that gets nervous while doing it, I've noticed over the years that one of the things that people tend to do is they just keep talking and talking and talking without trying to like understand or receive any feedback. So in this case, it's almost like if you keep talking, sometimes you're not going to let people ask you the questions, because the chances are that unless you actually listen to their question, you're not going to know what information they want to hear from you. In which case, you're just going to keep talking about information that the audience is largely going to regard as kind of irrelevant. So when it comes to the presenting and speaking, it's beating the nerves and having a bit of confidence to know that you got to stop talking at some point. And if you keep talking, people are going to forget questions. You're going to run on and sound like you don't know what you're talking about. It's going to be a jumbled mess. And honestly, you're kind of just wasting time. So be confident in what you're saying, put it out there, and then just let it sit. Even if you get an awkward silence and no one has questions, guess what? The idea was communicated. It was communicated well, or it was never going to be communicated well enough at all. Now you can move on. Keep it moving.
Oh, that was
like
well
that.
said. I like that, the jumbled mess, right? Actually, that has a lot.
Precisely.
That kind of goes directly into what I was going to say, actually.
Perfect. Great segues all around.
Right? So, like when I'm training people out in the field, I already know what corporate wants, what the bosses want, what stats they want to see. What is that now? How does that equate to training people the exact way that policy says to do the service, right? The pest control service on the house. There's a lot of fluff in there, right? And so when I'm training somebody, I'm like, go specifically to this corner, go to that corner, simply do this, do that, right? Spray over here, spray over there. And that's what happened. That's what I do when I'm training someone. And I will take them for the first several houses and get them used to doing that. And I say, okay, I'm required now to teach you about the way that policy says you need to be taught. And we're going to do that for the next couple of houses. Okay. And now I want you to break those two down for me after we're done. And that's my training regimen. Right. And so then we do all the fluff, and every single time, all I ever get is like, why am I doing this on that second time around. It's like, well, because this is what they want to see. They want to, it's dummy proof, you know, for someone who doesn't understand or who doesn't think like an adult. They want to make sure that you're out there getting the steps done versus how to make your stats look good for corporate, aka you're doing the job properly.
Do you think Nate that you could come up with a better system and then perhaps sell it to corporate and be like, hey, this works better?
It's actually funny you say that because I just recently had I had the third in line, what was he, the COO or whatever, request me. He surprised me by popping up being like, hey, how's it going? And he just, but I told him about my way of how to upsell people and how I never talk to people when I'm upselling. I'm just texting people. And that sparked something now where the head of marketing in the company I'm currently at literally had me put together a presentation to teach people this technique. So it's actually kind of funny you say that. Yeah. I have been getting some I have been getting some views. How about that from corporate?
Excellent. Dude, that's kick ass, bro. I love to hear it. It's tales of victory and tales of success from the boys. It's always something that's fun to hear. Shit, I had something else on that and I'm just drawing a blank. So we're going to do a hard transition, ladies and gentlemen, because when drawing a blank, we do a hard transition because that's how we do it over here. And on the subject of hard transitions, we're going to talk about WWE because we're all excited and we're having fun and it's a good, fantastic time. We're going to come in from the top rope. We're going to fucking RKO Savage. RKO Randy Orton slithering in out of nowhere. And the quote that I'm going to read for us is makeup, fashion, and social media are all like WWE wrestling. It's fun to watch, but it's not real. All right. So this one was also starred by our famous producer, Mrs. McGettit. And I think that this is super, super interesting because it's totally true. Fake makeup, fashion, social media, they're all fucking fake. It's all just basically branding. It's all the idea of like, I want other people to think of me this way. So this is how I'm going to portray myself to the world. Social media is important for like, if you have a business and you want people to like, so like take tower climbing, for instance. One of the things that I'm trying to talk my boss into is allow us to do more recording of videos. So that way, like I can send a whole bunch of B-roll off to like a video editor who can put all this stuff together. So it tells like a crazy story of like, wow, these guys are up in the towers, like doing all sorts of crazy shit. And like really at the end of the day, bro, we're loosening bolts and like we're tightening things and we're climbing around it 1,400 feet in the air. And so it's like, it sounds scary and it's super fun, but like there's some cool storytelling things that you can do for the point of like expanding the brand and getting more people interested in the thing and potentially hiring more employees and stuff. But like, the idea of social media, of makeup, of wearing particular clothes, of presenting yourself in public, or not presenting yourself in public, but like having a brand idea. The brand is all fake. The real thing is like when you're out there interacting with people like IRL, or like when you're doing stuff like similar to what we're doing right now. We're basically just four dudes hanging out. Like this is a good time. Like we're a bunch of bros and we're talking about a cool thing that we read that like we got some cool ideas on, right? Like some of this could be branding. And I know Z's over there shaking his head. He's like, yeah, I know it's not cool ideas. This is boring. Yeah, whatever, bro. You're hanging out with the boys. I know, and I appreciate it.
The boys, this is why I'm here.
I do enjoy hearing the different ways for you to shit on this book because like I legitimately don't think of these things. Like it's good to get perspective that's like not just a circle jerk of my own opinion. Like it's cool when people agree with me, but it's also cool when I get to hear what other people think. So that way I'm not like, stagnating and just swirling around in a cesspool of my own ideas all the time. But anyways, talking about cesspools, talking about swirling around in ideas, everything. Makeup is fake, but it's designed to attract people, right? Social media is fake. It's designed to attract people. It's designed to influence. It's designed to garner you respect. A person that puts on makeup and then turns themselves from like a 6 into a 7 or like a 7 into an 8, like they have a temporary effect on the world where they're like, it's like when you're playing Mario Kart and you run into the glowing star and now you can like run over all your friends and all your enemies and you can get to the finish line. These tools, they're fake, but they give you leverage. That's my take on this personal little thing. Using social media to your maximum advantage, using makeup and dressing and fashion and all these things to their maximum advantage is the way that you get leverage to do more things that you wouldn't normally be able to do. And the best thing is to like actually change yourself to become the better thing, so it's not just peacocking all the time. But those are my thoughts on this subject. I'm going to go ahead and toss it off to you guys. Oh, excuse me. Toss it off to you guys, and I want to hear your thoughts about makeup and WWE and social media and things of that nature.
Oh, I can start this off. I like it. Look prettier, please. Take the time.
Yes.
Look prettier.
Yes. This is good.
How about this, right? Like you can sit there in a real world, right? And everything could be boring as fuck. We could all be walking around naked. Wouldn't that be awesome? Or I got another idea. Maybe we could have these creative clothes with different vibrant colors and different ways that they look, and frills and all these other things and hoods and all that. And we are very different and interesting looking now. Yay. Things are more beautiful. Things are more interesting. The world is just a better place.
Dude, you talking about that, Nate, makes me want to go buy like a 6 foot tall, like yellow top hat and just like wear that into Walmart and just be like walking around the aisles pretending to be normal, wearing a 6 foot tall, like top hat. It's just absolutely silly and ridiculous. Like that dude from the Fairly Odd Parents or whatever,
You want to be
just
Doug
like
Dimmadome, owner of the Dimsdale Dimmadome?
That's the one. Walking around with a big ass fucking hat. Like people see that and they'll think it's funny and they'll laugh and they'll have a good time. And it's like, you lose a little bit of what's the word? Not dignity. Oh shoot. Like what people that wear suits and look serious. People that you don't look as serious. Yeah, you're more entertaining, but it's like people have fun, people have good times, Like I love how straightforward and honest you were, Nate. Yes. Be more attractive, people. I fucking like it. That was good. Sam, do you got any thoughts on this? About social media being fake?
Sam's about to tell you that you're never allowed to wear the same shirt twice on social media.
Yes, correct. Unless you're Will, because Will has a different brand. But yes, social media is fake, and that's okay because it's a tool.
Yes, precisely. Can you explain a little bit further about the tool, Sam?
Yes, it is just like basically what you've been saying. It's like it's an attention garnering device, or at the very least, it's like it's a free background check, right? So my personal Instagram.
Hey, I like that.
Oh yeah,
I'm writing that down.
Go. You can write that down. My personal Instagram, for example, is set up in such a way so that when I meet new people, whether it's men or women, they're going to perceive something about me, and it's not going to make them think worse of me. That's my goal. Like, there's not going to be any weird stuff on there. And there's very different standards, right? And like, I'm pretty sure I don't succeed in some cases because it's sometimes my brand reflects poorly on like certain groups of people. Like if I walked into I don't know, like a youth group or something and started to like getting my social media connected to a bunch of people, they'd probably look at it and be like, oh, right. But like, I'm okay with that because that's not the kind of like following that I want. But
that makes sense.
So it's a tool. Like like I just saw a reel the other day of somebody who basically ended up accidentally getting recorded on a screen for some reason, and somebody grabbed their face from that like quick little shot, and they did a whole bunch of like internet searching with a bunch of tools and like face matching and this, that, and the other, and they found the person's Instagram, some random guy in the world. They found his Instagram, and just like it's very connected out there. So you got to maintain your brand, your tools. It's just like clothes, but it's internet clothes.
Ooh. What you got, Zenith? I saw you come off mute.
Yeah, so I agree with Sam from my personal perspective, which is that social media is fake, but the things that I can gain from it are very real. However, when it comes to the actual book of Sci-Vive, I think that Richard actually kind of sees these two in two different lights based on what I was getting. Because the first half of the chapter, he does talk about fashion a good bit, and how fashion is used as actually an attraction trigger or a bit of like creating that persona to fit into a stereotype that people are going to assume that all people fit into. That's one of the things he's talked about early on, is that as sort of like a sorting or an order tool, which is that before you get to know somebody, you will categorize them based on how they present as some sort of category, call it a stereotype if you will, but kind of like a category of people, like businessman, skater, schoolboy, something like that. And then in the later half of the chapter, I think Richard very much goes after people that use social media as a way of living their life. I think it's one of those things where he talks about like, there's your selfie in the bathroom should go in the toilet along with your phone, which is like, he's kind of, this is right after the part where he talks about how in life you're going to have so many friends, you're going to have so many acquaintances, and you're going to have so many good friends. I think he even gives you one piece of advice, which is like, if you ever win the lottery, don't tell anybody, but instead ask people if they'd help you move the next day. And the people that don't help you, you're supposed to get rid of. Another Richardism for you. But the point is this, which is that there's so many people in your life that actually matter, yet you still have 650 friends on Facebook, even though you only care about seeing 50 people and what they do. So you should probably hide the other 600. And then when it comes to social media, it's understand that this could be a tool. However, what he has recognized is more of a trend, especially for younger folks, which is trying to live vicariously through the internet. And one of the ways he talks about this is that he believes that the machine incentivizes people to create and try to promote selfies, which is that you have all of the internet's information at your fingertips, yet you get dopamine hits out of posting pictures of yourself and then getting validation for it. So this is one of those things in the book where it's like, it's more prescriptive in my mind as like one of the things that Richard Hart actually believes, as opposed to like his amoral, non-emotional, just try to do cold hard calculus analysis, which is more along the lines of like the fire don't fix. But this one is actually, I think, where you see a little bit more of what he actually feels about social media. So that's what we got. We got a comment by Moondog here. What we got? The internet is literally
Potemkin
Pokemon,
Village.
I don't know what that means.
Potemkin
That has been dead for years, aka verifiably and measurably fake. At least more fake than real, even in the loose use of the term to begin with. What is
Potemkin was a
village? I'm unfamiliar.
Something World War II. Potemkin. We do it live, folks. Potemkin Village. I believe. Okay, Potemkin Village, its original meaning, any number of fake villages designed to impress Russian Empress Catherine the Great. The term has also come to be used to describe an elaborate facade designed to hide an undesirable reality. Oh, and the images that they have for this is like the old-fashioned like movie prop buildings where it shows like what looks like, you know, an old Western, like the
storefronts.
The storefronts, and then like you could see the boards propped up behind them, like holding all the storefront like faces up and stuff. So that's a Potemkin Village. Something. Okay, so I was wrong. Yeah, it was not World War II, but I guess I don't know when Catherine the Great was alive, but it was probably a long time ago. But something in Russia about a fake place to live to impress an empress. Oh, that kind of reminds me of like people talking about going on tour in North Korea, like famous people like going up there and like being shown like, look at how great North Korea is. They only show them like the capital city, and they only like walk them down the nicest streets, and they like, you know, they basically fake everything. So that's interesting.
I hear you.
Good reference, Moondog. Go ahead, Zenith.
Great reference. I was gonna say, as far as bringing it back to sci-fi fashion and social media, trying to understand what Richard means by this, because like clearly he views fashion as a very legitimate way to either be effectively used in real life as some sort of like marketing or eyeball catching campaign, but he also talks about it in the same breath as something that is used to actually like physically attract the opposite sex to you as well. So I think he thinks it could be multiple things depending on what you need it to be and when. And then social media, it seems like, is more of just like purely in the fake category, still tool, but more of the pure fake. If you catch my drift.
Well, it's because it's the real human behind it, right? So like with clothing or fashion or whatever, that legitimately will make you feel a certain way, which makes you in real life act a certain way as a human who's out there in real life. Versus on the internet, I suppose you could say that would make you act a certain way, but it makes you act a certain way in front of a camera, which then you post it, you know? And so technically speaking, if you are looking at it, it is all completely fake. And you're purposely out there to give an impression and not actually feel that impression. You're actually just putting that impression out there, you know?
Yeah, as far as sharing how I personally feel about social media, I'm very much a boomer, and you'll probably hear me say many times that me not knowing how to operate Twitter is a feature, not a bug, in which is like, it seems like a lot of social media is either the bathroom wall of the internet or it is entirely fake and manufactured. Like, for instance, the primary function that I use Instagram for is I use it to look at cat memes. Outside of that, it's not really good for much else. I see tons of ads and I see tons of people promoting their pages, which is probably just more of links to OnlyFans or some sort of MLM that they're promoting.
You know why they originally created the internet, right?
Oh, it was like, God, it was like CIA trying. No, it was
porn.
It was either.
It
Was it? I thought
porn.
it was.
I thought it was the. I thought it was
people.
Army trying to do communications.
It's naked.
Yeah,
people.
I don't know. It could. I believe it. It wouldn't surprise me.
Hard.
I know that.
That's why they
I know
created
that,
cameras too. Take pictures
I know
of
that-
naked ladies.
The reason that VHS won over Betamax was because of the freaking porn industry. I don't want to go down too crazy of a tangent here. I'm gonna do the host thing. I'm gonna reel us back in to the comments and stuff.
I have a comment that I want to bring up real quick, which is Moondog has a comment talking about dead internet theory. He says, there's a YouTube series called Dead Internet Theory. I'm realizing I can post a link to Telegram as I type it in now. Yes, but Moondog has a very good point here, which is referencing Dead Internet Theory, which is, it's kind of also in relation to one of the, a theory about how the sexual revolution ended up making sure that people have less sex, which is that because you're trying to promote this thing more freely, people end up doing it less because they I guess almost don't want to, yet they're insisting that it be demanded. I think it kind of ties in with dead internet theory, which is that the more that we evolve into the internet and the more that social media is expanding, allow people to show more of themselves, what you're going to end up happening is you're going to get sock puppet accounts, you're going to get fake accounts, you're going to get AI, and you're going to get just like brands trying to, AI is posing as a brands where you get like, I think it was like Wendy's or something that was tweeting based at like random profiles. It's stuff like that where it's the more advanced this thing becomes, the less people are actually here using it for the intended purposes, and instead the people that are remaining are becoming the product for the people that are paying to be there, which is corporations, advertisers, people trying to turn a buck, that kind of stuff. So
yeah,
social media, in my opinion, seems like I don't believe that dead internet theory is like exactly how it is now, because there's definitely absolutely people out there trying to make money on social media. But at the same time, I think we're definitely headed that way in a direction. And I mean, I had a conversation with somebody in Vegas about this. He was oh shoot, I feel so bad I forgot his name. He was one of the guys that presented during the Pitch Fest. He was pitching a browser for Pulse Chain that also had AI tools to help you detect when AI was there. But I talked with him afterwards, and he was talking about, yeah, there's also tons of AI tools that can help you do things like scrape YouTube for popular video ideas, help you write a script about certain things, pretty much do the voice acting for you, find B-roll, edit the whole thing, and even publish it. And I pointed out, I was like, that's pretty much the entire creative process, starting and ending with AI using data available. And theoretically, this would get to a point where it's just AI making content for other AI based on the things that AI is already promoting.
And so you do it first, so that way you can make advertising money while it's still fresh and it's still new. Just like, you know, when OnlyFans started up, like, okay, so for real, when OnlyFans started up, the first people that did it made a lot of money. And now, like, if you're a content creator, or I shouldn't, if you're someone who makes things that other people consume and it happens to be on OnlyFans, like, you're not making a lot of money as an individual anymore. Most of the money in OnlyFans now is being made through the like the conglomerate, the pimps, the online pimps. I can't think of the name, the managers. That's what it's called. The managerial things. They basically taken like the individual creativity or creationism and they've scaled it out. So it's like, it's just like anything else. Getting in when it first starts and the going is good before like the regulation gets crazy. Like you could say this with crypto as well. You could say this with the internet. You could say this with like lots of things. Getting in on the ground floor and doing stuff before it gets like commonplace is the way that you make the real money. And so like at some point, yeah, AI is going to be like, I mean, it's already crazy integral in a lot of things that we do, and the people that aren't, keeping up with the times, they're getting left behind. So it's like, I think that you're absolutely right. Or well, you could be absolutely right, Zenith. If the internet is dead and going nowhere, like I don't know what the fuck's going on, but like
The point
it's
of
certainly
me bringing
fucking
up this
interesting.
the point of bringing up this entire line of thinking is that it goes back to the point from the book, which is that social media is fake, and the reality is it's probably only going to get more fake.
Yeah. Yep. And we'll see. It's interesting how the algorithm feeds basically what is just another algorithm. And so, yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and do a hard transition, and we're going to get in one final topic. So I'm going to scroll through here and take a look at, oh, okay, all right. So this is one of my favorite parts of Sci-Fi, the part that we're about to cover, and it's the part about apologizing, because I'd never really thought about apologies before. And then like Richard Hart brought this up, and he just like all of the principles were there inside of my head, understanding like what makes for a good apology, but I never heard it spoken in such like a succinct and like easily digestible way that it's like, this is how good apologies are made. And this is like a very important thing. So apologizing properly is important. You have to acknowledge what harm was done, why the harm should not have done, and what one is going to do to ensure that the harm is not done in the future. So those three things: one, did something bad; two, I shouldn't have done something bad because of X, Y, and Z that has to do with reasons that are outside my own. So basically, like if you wrong someone, you have to say like, look, I understand that I wronged you because this is the way that like you get wronged, or this is like this is the way that you interpret it. This is how I walk the world in your shoes. And then three, this is what I'm going to do to make sure that this thing does not happen again. Right. And then it all has to be like packaged up with sincerity, and you have to actually mean the things that you're saying. But those are like the three meat and potato parts of the apology portion of Sci-Fi. So I want to get your guys' thoughts on the apology section, because it's something that like it's a dying art, making like a proper apology. Like I remember when I was growing up, like, and Sam might remember this as well, with our mother constantly talking to us about like, don't apologize if you don't mean it, or like you have to go and like figure out if you mean it or whatever. And it's essentially just like a not as effective way as Richard Hart talking about like, this is how you make the apology. These are the three things that you need, and you need to do it with sincerity. Right. So like, what are your guys' thoughts on making good apologies? And did this part of the book stand out to you? Did you guys have any crazy thoughts regarding this? This is one of my favorite parts. So I want to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions.
Yeah, this one kind of hit home with me because I was that kid growing up, and kid throughout my 20s too, by the way. It took a while for me to learn this, but I was the guy who someone felt wronged by something that I did, got upset over something that I did, said whatever. And they would confront me with why they're upset. And I say, oh, well, the reason why I said, or the reason why I did was this, this, and this. And it's like, and it got to the point where like, my either bosses or my parents were always like, you always have a reason. I'm like, well, of course, because I don't do something without a reason. And when he was talking about like, sometimes the only thing that people really truly want to hear for their own feelings, right, is that you acknowledge that you hurt them in some sort of way, and that you will try to not hurt them again. And it's like an instinctual thing. And so for me, back in those days, being the analytical type, I'm like, well, of course I did this, and you felt that way over this, so why should I have to say sorry if you're the one who has a problem with it, But that's not the point. The point is somebody feels that you have harmed them, and they don't want to be harmed by you in the future. Yeah. And so the apology is the most efficient and probably best way to ensure someone that, hey, you're not going to be harmed by me in the future. That's just on instinctual levels, not like actual harm or anything. But
yeah, sure. And that's I'm glad that you bring that up, Nate. Shoot, there was something that you had mentioned in there that I wanted to tee off, and I can't quite remember. So I'm going to go ahead and throw it over to Sam and Zenith, and I'm gonna get your guys' opinions on, like, what did you think about Richard Hart describing the apology sequence and the effectiveness versus like other people's shitty versions of apologies that we are so often enamored with these days?
I'll take it. It seemed a lot to me like reverse sales. You know, it's like you've done something wrong because you are, not that it's like objectively wrong to like do things for yourself, but you have made a situation worse for somebody else, most likely because you like didn't do something you said you would, or you did something that like was rude, or you had uncontrollable emotions, like something like that, right? And so, as an example, if I'm drawing plans for someone and I say, hey, I'm going to have it done by this day, and then I don't, and like they were counting on that to happen for some reason, then I have made their life objectively worse, because they're now I maybe have messed up their schedule. And you could ask Mr. Project Management down here on like, you know, why it's important to have things on time and all this, that, and the other. But it's like I've taken a step back in the trust and the good rapport we had, and now I need to basically resell them on the idea that even though I made a mistake in my judgment to not do the thing on time, I can improve that. And this kind of goes back to what Richard Hart was saying, is like, do people improve? Do they not improve? I would argue that people can change, because like we're all like, if we have an open feedback loop and if you make it important enough to yourself to change, then you just will. So it's like you have to sell somebody on the idea that you can change, and they're going to either give you the chance or they're not. But I think the way he framed it was good. It's making it very like clear and direct. It's removing the fluffy words and like the I feel this way and I feel that way. And it's like, no, like this is the thing I did wrong. I like, and whatever the steps were that he listed, it's very clear, and that removes the ability for people to get emotionally, like extra emotional about it. So I liked it.
Excellent. What you got, Z?
Well, this is that very awkward part of the conversation where earlier you said that I bring up things that you didn't catch, and this is the part where I tell you that I think I must have had my eyes glazed over for this part, because I do not remember it at all.
Oh, no kidding.
As far as the personal mantra, it was 5.5 hours on double speed, so I mean, there's a lot in there. I'll say this though, the personal mantra for apologies is like, you can only apologize to people you mean to. Can't apologize to a crowd. And if you are going to apologize, you either got to tell them they were right and you were wrong about something, or acknowledge that you did harm or hurt them in some way. And then you got to try to either mean it and do better, or compromise. So here you go.
I like
Uncle
that.
Z done.
That's good. That's good, Zenith. I can try and find for you the timestamp. In fact, I'm going to do that. I'm going to find the timestamp there, because I think that this is one of the best parts of Sci-Vive, is the apology section, because like this is something that we're all going to make mistakes in life, and if we're giving shitty apologies, then that's like it's like trampling on relationships with people. And it's super simple. It's really succinct, this portion of the book. And so I'm going to find that. But Nate, I remembered what I wanted to tag off, what I wanted to tee off of with what you were saying. And you were talking about when you were younger, you were talking about like your reasons for doing things, and how the reasons and the explanations and stuff, it made it in your mind like, oh, what I'm doing is justified, and things like that. Like and there's two perspectives here when it comes to an apology, and this is the thing that I wanted to talk about. Is there's the perspective of the apologizor and the perspective of the apologizee. And when it's time for an apology, or like when the relationship it's broken on the side of the apologizee. They're the ones that no longer believe the apologizor. So like the apologizer, they have their own perspectives, they have their own understandings, they have their own everythings, but they think the relationship is fine and they're not like concerned or they're not worried or whatever the heck. The apologizee is the guy who's been wronged, who's been harmed, who has to been, like Sam was saying, the reverse sales process. So when the apologizer talks about the reasons why they did the thing that they do, it's essentially saying like, hey, I made this decision because of X, Y, and Z input. Therefore, and like the implication of that is X, Y, and Z input is more important than my ability to make the decision, or like it's irrelevant. Like the reason that you feel bad is irrelevant because I made the decision because of circumstances outside of my control. And really, that's not what that's most of the time not what the apologizee. This is what I was thinking here, is the apologizee doesn't want to hear that the apologizer is not in charge. They don't want to hear that the apologizer is unable to fix the circumstances or is unable to change their realities, because then like the person who is wronged, they can't be like, I can't trust someone who's not in control of the situation. And that's why, like, when people are late because of traffic, right? Or when people like they didn't show up because they got drunk or whatever the heck. It doesn't, like, the reason why, from the perspective of the person being apologized to, the reason why doesn't matter to them, because they're the ones that ultimately have to deal with the thing that went wrong itself, not necessarily the cause of why the thing went wrong. And the person over that's doing the apologizing, they have to do their best. If they want to fix the relationship, they have to do their best to take charge of all the surroundings and factor in the unknowns and factor in the unplanned problems and factor in all the other things, and like adjust and grow and change as the situation unfolds to rebuild that relationship between the two people. So that was the thing that struck me, and that was you talking about when you realized that wasn't working anymore, was like giving people the explanations and things, Nate. It wasn't working. So that was the thought that I had, like kind of like opening the hood and peering inside and looking at the engine and everything.
Yeah, and I want to change just one thing. It's not that the apologizee is the one who feels like you were like the apologizer was out of control, but it's actually worse, because it was the apologizer is in full control and acknowledged that the feelings of the apologizee alone is, well, invalid because of the decisions that the apologizer were the ones what were the decisions that were made. And so in a really simple sense, you could basically say, I think it's better if I trample over you and able to get past you to wherever destination. And when
that's
somebody
a good point.
I think that's a terrible idea. You say, well, it's going to be the fastest way and the best possible way, in my opinion, so I'm going to do it anyways.
Yeah, and it's like shutting the door on the kids in the Titanic down at the very bottom floor. It's like, sorry guys, we got to make sure the ship doesn't sink. You're going down. Too bad.
Yep.
Ship's got to survive.
Exactly. And see, I never thought about it that way until years and years and fucking years of having to learn about this stuff, right? And a lot of hurt along the way. And so eventually I started learning, oh, okay, I may have had decisions, but the consequences of somebody else getting hurt in the process was unfortunate, yes, but able to maintain that relationship, it's quite simply, all I need to do is take 100% responsibility, right? And just simply say, hey, I messed up because I ran you over. I'm sorry, I did not mean to run you over. And then, help pick them back up. And then you can continue on. So you technically still ran them over, but I mean, at least you fixed it.
On the subject of continuing on and running people over. Ooh, shout out to DGen Roundtable. Do you mean Extreme Ownership, Nate? Yeah. Shout out to Jocko Willink and Leaf Babin, authors of Extreme Ownership, where the whole point of the book is extreme ownership and taking responsibility, authority, and accountability for everything that there is that like happens inside of your life, because ultimately you're the only one who can affect any change. And on the subject of affecting any change, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, crypto degenerates, ducks and squirrels, we've been going for an hour and 53. It's time to start closing out the show. This has been a fantastic episode of the DGen Roundtable Book Club. And I want to shout out the DGen Roundtable Book Club Telegram. Again, it is t.me/DGen Book Club. That's the Telegram. My laptop is still on the fritz, so I can't be dropping any links. So you guys are just going to have to figure it out on your own. And, I'll probably drop more links, but you guys can catch us here every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Before we go, though, I want to give the panel a quick chance to shout out the things that are going on in the near future and where can the folks find them at home. As for me, you guys can find me at will.pls.fyi, and you guys can join the DGen Roundtable at bit.ly/degenerate_roundtable. I would highly suggest clicking this QR code right over here. Well, I guess you can't really click it, but you can click on the link in the description below. In the description for this channel, it will take you to the DGen Roundtable, or you can scan that QR code with your phone, take a picture of your computer, or like scan a phone of a friend or whoever's watching this with you. However you got to do it, but get in that Telegram channel, and that's what I got. Mr. Zenith, where can the folks find you, and what do you have coming on in the near future, my friend?
I will answer that question in a quick second after you give the people one last time their favorite part of the show, which is chat.
The favorite part of the show. Oh, thank you. It's time for chat. I can't see if I'm holding it right. Chat shout out.
Killer, my man, killer. Alrighty, we have someone who is absolutely tearing it up in the chat tonight, and that is none other than Moondog, closing out the idea of apologizing. Or I think this was opening it actually. He says, "Here's an idea: love/care enough about what you are communicating and the people to whom you are attempting to communicate it with, to want to have an engaging communication." Just a thought. Good point.
I like it.
Excellent point. Also great stuff on the how to give proper apologies section. All that was spot on, my man. Spot on. And last but not least, we have a little bit of a late arrival, but nonetheless super happy to have you here. We have Charlotte Night Star, the werewolf. She says, "Hey, question or heart. I heard a great debate about like how you do hearts shows what generation you're in. I can't do this one clearly, so I don't know." Yeah,
it's
Will's
like
got that
flicking
one.
people off. You flick people off, and then you turn it upside down, and you just extend your fingers a little bit more. And then
See,
you got
the only thing I ever learned was peace. Here's your half.
Yep. And then you do this, or if you're Korean or
Oh, that's English.
no, this is I think this is Korean, or this is like a little heart. See a little heart? Isn't that cute?
I believe it was School of Rock that Jack Black gave us the read between the lines.
I love Jack
That's a good
Black.
one. I like that.
Yeah. Alrighty, that is what we got for chats. I'm Zenith. Thank you so much for joining us. Book Club is always a good one. And I promise I'm not here just to crap on the sci-fi books. I'm just saying, I think Richard has a lot of great ideas. I think he's not the greatest writer. This could definitely be a little bit more polished in my opinion. But nonetheless, this does touch on a lot of the stuff that we talk about anyways. So it is always good to hit. And then I will try to be the voice of reason and not just promote the the idea that Hex is a cult, because we're not. We are trying to be competent investors, and Sci-Vive is just a great look inside his mind and the way that he thinks about things. And I think that even Richard Hart is going to be one of the people that tells you that you should definitely listen to the people about what they're very good at and maybe not what they're not great at. So did he write a self-help book? Yes, he did. Is it one of the greats, and is it better than Rich Dad Poor Dad, Richest Man in Babylon, 40-Minute Work Week, or How to Win Friends and Influence People? I would argue no. It's definitely not shorter, I will say that much. Anyways, you can find me over on Twitter and X at ZenithDI, and then we will be back next week for one of the books that I have. We have it down to a short list. We have The Power of Now or The One Thing. It's going to be either one of those, or if the chat comes up with a different option they would like us to cover instead, more than happy to give the people what they want. So
I would challenge you to make a decision. I would challenge you to make a decision right now, so that way the folks can know what they should be reading for the next week, as opposed to waiting for a second announcement.
Cool.
I'm going to put you on the spot, Zenith. Power of Now. Boom.
Power of Now.
I love it. I love to hear it. Excellent.
Like you
Power
use
of
the power
Now.
of now to decide.
Yeah, I'm trying to read into it a bit.
Excellent. Mr. Nate, why don't you go ahead and tell the folks where they can find you and what you got going on in the near future, my friend, and then toss it over to Sam once you're finished.
Yes, sir. I am the Ascending Man, Nate McGettit from the DGen Roundtable. And there's going to be some very special things popping up. I'm working on some projects. I got a lot of like really deep projects popping out. So it's not going to be the stuff that I'm working on is not going to come out like fast, like every few days I'm popping something out. But, you know, it's going to take a few weeks because these are really deep projects I'm really looking into. But when I release stuff, it's going to be an event. So you need to get into that Telegram because you're only going to be seeing these things in the Telegram first. and then maybe after a few weeks or a month or so, then I'll release it onto the channel. But you need to get into that Telegram to actually see this stuff right off the bat and enjoy the some of the alpha I'm going to be dropping for you guys, as well as teaching. So, yep, trying to give out as much value as I possibly can. So look forward to it. Get in that Telegram. Sam, what is up?
Well, I am doing bungalows for bachelors things. I'm going to try to be finishing up an ADU, well, like finishing up an ADU conversion, turning a garage into a living apartment for somebody as a little real estate investment in their backyard. And speaking of that, if you guys want to learn about how to do construction things and potentially get some cash flow or passive income from real estate or whatever that may be, you ought to know about houses, because that's what the real estate's made of. And I teach about all that stuff. And man, there is no other community like mine. There is no other education source like mine that teaches from the angles that I have in my community. So join it, t.me/BFB success. I'm going to drop the link right here in the chat. And man, guys, just coming over, hanging out. If you want a free $400, I'm doing a giveaway. You could get, it's basically going to be a gift card to any like hardware store of your choice, whether that's Home Depot, Lowe's, McCoy's, Menards, you name it, wherever you are in the country, whatever's convenient for you. There's a bunch of ways to join. Check out my Telegram. There's a bunch of rules in there on how to get into that.
Hey, I could get some pest control stuff with that.
Excellent. Ooh, that would be fantastic. A cool little collaboration. I'd love to hear it. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, crypto degenerates, ducks and squirrels, we want to thank you guys for spending all this fantastic time with us, whether you're catching us live or you're on the replay. We love to see each and every motherfucking one of you spending your valuable time with us, because as Agent J likes to say, we know that time is your most valuable asset. Mrs. Producer, go ahead and get that trigger figure ready, because you guys already know what time it is. I want to make sure to remind each and every one of you guys watching to degen responsibly.